Hey everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Golden Axe. It's a great Sega Genesis Mega Drive game, one of the originals that came out for the system when it was launched. It's a beat 'em up, side scrolling. You play multiple characters. Each character has their own special moves. They also have their own special attacks and different speeds and different strengths. Um, as far as the moves go, that's like their magic. They're all different. Some of them are lightning based, some of them are fire based, or wind based. So we'll go through all that as we speak about this. But really, let's get on with this. All right. Sorry, I was looking at the.
You look at Tyrus's bum.
Gameplay.
You look at Tyrus's bum.
Yeah,
I was.
So I saw that twinkle in his eye.
Some of them are more attractive than others. So that's the general intro for the game. Description. Yeah, I kind of went through that already. So it's not a very long game. It's pretty short. Some of the levels are, I want to say, a little more difficult than others, especially when you get to the bosses. You really have to strategize how you save your magic and when to use it. That's important in this game because otherwise you're going to wind up trying to defeat some invincible enemies. Like, there's skeletons that you can't kill in certain areas that if you don't have any magic, to knock them down and go after the main boss, you're not going to make it through the challenge of that part of the game. And it's very easy to die and not have any continues. So it's a game that you really have to. You're going to die a lot of times playing this game. When you first start out, you're going to have to learn, when to use what and where. And the more that you go through the game, the better you get at it, I feel. But once you've got it mastered, to me, it's an easy beat. You know your character, you know their strengths, you know what their weaknesses are. And you might want to try to play different characters if you've never tried them before, because you might like something better than, something else. You might want more speed and better magic as opposed to, stronger fighting skill. Yeah, it just depends on how you enjoy playing the game. And it's fun to play this game, in my opinion, with every single character in it. They all present their own, strengths and weaknesses, which I personally like. So it's a game that you can beat over and over again just by using different characters and have a completely different experience with the game than you did with the first character that you beat it with. So let's go around the room and we'll talk about everybody's experiences with the game. Maybe I'll start first. When I first got Sega Genesis, that was one of the very first games that I bought for the system. Beyond like Altered Beast, and I think my system came with Streets of Rage too, so I had those already. I've always been a fan of side-scrolling type beat 'em ups. Golden Axe is a readily available game. It's a very common game. It was easy to obtain. It wasn't very expensive, and it was good. I loved it in the arcade too, so it was a great arcade game. And even better, being able to play it at home. Not having to pump quarters into a system and have a really similar experience to what the arcade gave you as well. So yeah, I got that my early teens, and it was a game I played often. Anytime that I was like, oh man, what do I play? I'm bored. I could always go back to Golden Axe and play that and be happy. And play through the levels and beat the game and and be satisfied at the end that I had a good time. So we'll start with Dan. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I remember it in Skegness Arcade. It was one of the machines you could never get on in Skegness Arcade. Skegness is a holiday resort in the UK. It's around 2 hours away from me. And my local arcade never had Golden Axe, but Skegness had all the top quality stuff. And there were always people on it. And I never actually got to play it in the arcade, which kind of pissed me off, to be honest. I just couldn't. You just couldn't get on it every time I went there. So my actual first time playing it was when my mate Oz got an imported Japanese Mega Drive, and he got Golden Axe with it. And yeah, it were really, really something special. It were a great early title, and I just remember that intro screen, and like it really felt like that next gen of gaming had landed at home, and I couldn't, I couldn't believe how I've been looking at this, arcade machine, dying to play it, and suddenly it were there, in my friend's house. So, and obviously, I got it as early as possible when the Mega Drive got an official release about a year later. So, they're my early memories of it.
All right, Rick, go ahead.
So when I first got my Sega Genesis, I had been playing Golden Axe in the arcade for, I think it was out for about a year before the Genesis version came out. And when I first bought my Genesis, of course, I had to pack in Altered Beast. And I bought 2 other games at the same time so that I would have at least a variety to play as soon as I got home. And the other 2 games were Golden Axe and Revenge of Shinobi. So I started my collection with these 3 games, and out of those 3, I probably played Golden Axe the most. To my youthful eyes, it didn't seem like there was very much difference at all from the home version versus the arcade. So naturally, I was in awe as a kid. I was playing the actual arcade version in my mind at home, which was pretty surreal. Love the game. I always have. They've come out with some sequel, with some later versions like part 2 and part 3, and they added some things and made some adjustments. But I think my favorite is always going to be the original. It's a really great game.
Nice.
For sure. Yeah, man. 2 and 3 are both good. We didn't, obviously, everybody knows we didn't get 3 here in America. North America didn't get a release of 3. I think Japan did, and I don't know did you guys get a PAL release of Golden Axe 3?
No, it was on the it was on the Sega channel, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but no, there was no official cartridge release of Golden Axe 3. With regret. Although it is on the Sega Mega Drive collection on Nintendo Switch, if you want to play it that legitimately. But yeah.
Yeah, so we got the shaft in our regions on Golden Axe 3. Only the Japanese kids got to enjoy that.
That in itself we could do a video on that on its own, because I could
yeah.
But my first impression of this is my copy. It's here. I've still got it. The first ever game I completed on the Mega Drive is this. So it's a very special game. I mean, what do I say? There were 3 games I played a lot when I first got the Mega Drive, and I'm a lot younger than you guys. I was 6-7 years old when I played this thing, and the games were Sonic the Hedgehog, World of Illusion, and this. Now Sonic was a game I played a lot, but I died a lot. But this was the game I played, and a lot with my father. And it's a co-op game, isn't it? It's a 2-player game. And yeah, you could say Altered Beast is a 2-player game, but this is a 2-player game, yeah? And it's, I love the music. When I first started playing, I love the music, I love the characters, I love the design, I love the world that it's in. It's got very Conan the Barbarian style fantasy setting. And there's just so many facets to this game. So many facets. I mean, you got the story where you got to sort of save the king and the princess from this evil tyrannical overlord, and one thing I love doing with these games is like opening the manual and reading the stories, because they were pretty fun for me. But playing the game itself, getting to the boss at the end of every level and beating the boss and knowing when the magic is for the bosses. It's not for like middle of the stage, right? But it depends on what character you're getting, how many magic bottles they can carry as well. Also, what fighting techniques to use on certain bad guys. I've actually replayed this game recently, and I've realized that there are, and I'll talk about that later on in the video. There are differences. There are big differences to what I thought, because as a kid, I used to always just play as Gilius Thunderhead. That was my go-to character. But and he's the dwarf. But yeah, it's just a great game that blew me out my mind. And when my father and I used to play it, because that's how I was practicing playing the game, it wasn't as hard as a platform. You don't have to worry about jumping into ditches, although there are segments of the game where that can happen. Me and my father working together and communicating together, him helping me with, oh, this is what you need to do next time, this is how you want to do it, this is what you want to do, and I learning these moves on my own. It was a good bonding exercise I had with my father, and there was a lot of fun with that. So this game holds a very special place in my heart as a kid. And when I got to the last boss, and my father died on the last boss, and it was just me on my own. I thought, Dad, I need you to help me beat this guy. And we kept going. And we did it. I killed him, and I thought, we did it. And that was like, yes. And my dad was like, he stood up on the stairs and said, yes, that's it. You did it, my son. Well done, Vira. Yes. It was like one of those moments. And it was probably my first ever moment in my short-lived life at that point of self-actualization. That I had actually achieved something big. I beat Golden Axe. So, yeah, a game that bears a very special place in my heart.
Brilliant.
My first impression.
What a beautiful
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Right.
Let's talk about the characters in the game. So you got some choices. You can either be a barbarian, you could be the dwarf, the battle axe wielding dwarf, or you could be the babe. Me personally, I always played as the babe. She was always my favorite. Her magic's the best. That's just for me. So, who did you prefer, Dan?
Tyrus. I was a babe man. I was obsessed with a bum as a young lad, as a teenager. That was honestly. I mean, look at her arse and think, wow.
Look at her on the cover art, mate, on the PAL version. I mean, we've got a better one than you guys in America. I'll tell you that. She looks amazing in this. What you guys got? I looked at the American one. I was like,
She's
going to get it now, isn't it? We had better box art here in the PAL region. What you guys got? Let's have a look. She looks like, she looks like a cave girl in your one. Is it? Where is she? You can hardly see her, man. Yeah,
they got her hidden back there.
Yeah, that's actually the cover art on our manual. I think we have it on the manual.
There we go.
This is what Japan got for 3. I mean, look at Japan's. There's this glare stuff. There we go.
Oh well, yeah. Is what it is.
She looks pretty badass in 2. I gotta say, I wouldn't mess with her.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like to pick Gilius Thunderhead. I was not a babe girl personally. I mean, my brother would always pick her because he knew if you're going to do you be the dwarf, and because we didn't like being the man, we didn't like being him. Was it the axe battler? Even though he's like the main hero of the story, right. We picked. I picked the dwarf, and he picked the babe because she had the strong magic. And on one extreme, while Gilius Thunderhead had the weakest magic power, he was a very powerful. He was like the hardest guy. If you want to have a brawl with someone, he was the strongest character in my opinion, and I was not really all about using the magic. I just liked the idea. And one thing I liked about the game was, when you attack someone, it's the sound effect of attacking. It's like, and it's that feeling you get when you take someone out. And there's never been a game quite like it. I mean, yes, the Streets of Rage and the sound effects got weaker in the Golden Axe series as it went along, but that sound, that contact that character makes with the bad guys, and you take them out, and then they had a little scream when they die at the end. That was always quite fulfilling. I enjoyed that about the game. But yeah, I picked Gilius because he was my character. He was just so fun to just hack people and just take him to pieces. Well, not take him to pieces, but chuck him, take him down and kill him quicker. That's me.
Viraj, I like the point that you make about the when they die and the sound that they make when they die. I wanted to mention, maybe some of you know, probably all of us know, but that sound effect came from the original Conan
Rambo.
the Barbarian movie.
Was it for Rambo?
Do you remember the part when the spike comes and hits that guy in the chest? And he makes a scream. That's the scream that they use when people. It's the exact same soundbite. To agree with Viraj here, my favorite character is also Gilius Thunderhead, the dwarf. Um, I played Dungeons and Dragons back in the day, and my favorite character class was dwarf. So I always picked the dwarf when I played Golden Axe. I mean, I played a beating it with all the different characters, but Gilius was always my favorite. He has a longer reach, in spite of him being short, and his back attack seems to be maybe quicker and also longer reach. But I might be mistaken about that. But yeah, he's my favorite character too.
Nice.
That's why you have a beard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got an awesome beard. Let's talk about some strategies in the game when you're playing with your certain characters. So, if I'm playing Tyrus, I want to, she doesn't have like the best attack skills. I mean, they're good, but the magic is really where it's at with her. So I would say using the ledges to get rid of enemies is probably one of my favorite strategies when using her because, ends the fight a little quicker. So, you want to try to set up your enemies so that their back is going to be to that ledge, and you could just give them a quick 1-2 and knock them right off, and then deal with the rest of them and try to get all of them to go over that way. You lure them over because that game, no matter where you play in that game, all the enemies one of them tries to get behind you every single time, which is like, that's going to be your weak link. That's probably the most important thing about playing Golden Axe is to keep your enemies on one side and protect your back. You do have a back attack, but when somebody gets behind you and you're in the middle of a combo move on them, that other enemy is just going to come from behind you and knock you down, and and then every time you get back up, they're even closer. So it's like, that's important,
Yeah.
and you really have to play strategically with those certain characters.
Right. That's where the pits can work against you too, is if an enemy gets behind you and you're in the middle of knocking them off the edge, and then that one that got behind you knocks you off the edge. So it can work that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. That's happened to me. It happened to me when I was playing this game through recently, and it happened to me on level 7. Which is the level just after you kill Death. The Death Adder, and you got that extra bonus level. And I think there's another thing we haven't mentioned yet about this game, which is this had an extra level the arcade version didn't have. The Mega Drive port is the superior game, and it's very rare that I can say that the console version is better than the arcade. I think we can all agree that the Mega Drive version is the best version of this game because of that extra level.
Yeah. Oh, easy. And I'd add other things into that, to be honest, mate. I think there's quite a few additions. Me personally, I prefer the darker tone. I think the arcade version looks a bit soft.
Washed out.
Yeah, and washed out. Whereas the Mega Drive version is nice and got a nasty edge to it, which I much prefer.
Okay, there's some extra animations in the arcade version. I know you made a point earlier, Rick, about the sound being used from Conan, was it? I remember reading, actually, there was somebody who did a YouTube video on who's doing Battle of the Ports. His name's Retro Core, and he talked about the soundbite of Golden Axe being from Rambo. But I think that might have been the arcade version because it's a different screen. So I don't know. Maybe he was talking about licensing and how they put the Golden Axe on Astro City Mini, and how Sega just didn't care about the license. They just loaded the soundbite on anyway. They didn't even care. They didn't worry about getting sued by the studio. So it's very interesting how they get these soundbites from movies onto this thing. I found that really interesting. But one thing I noticed about the arcade version is there is a bit of latency which the Mega Drive version doesn't have. There's actually a tighter control mechanism. So that's what I like about the Mega Drive one. But look, the bottom line is it has an extra level, and that's more game is better. And I always did feel when I played the arcade version, although you could say as a bias because I played the Mega Drive version first, that it felt a bit anemic because a little bit short. But I can understand why, because the arcade version is, you got 3 life bars. You can't extend it to 5 as well. There's a lot of options with the Mega Drive version. And that's another thing. You can actually make it as hard as you like with the Mega Drive version. There's always so much replay value there. Yeah. And the replay values, one, you can play as the different characters, as Steve-O said. I play as Gilius, but recently I went back and played with Tyrus and Axe Battler, and I learned that they have their strengths and weaknesses against certain characters in the game. So, for example, it's the level It's the level 3 boss. You know, the guy in the full knight outfit and the sword and the big sword. He can take you down in one swoop. You know, that guy. If you try to attack him with Axe Battler by doing you get the rush attack, the headbutt attack, shall we say? Axe Battler moves so slow that guy can just swoop a life meter off you. The best way to take him out with Axe Battler is actually get him and just use your sword at him. Whereas with Tyrus, you want to use that attack because she's fast enough to do it. So each character has their own strength and weakness when it came to that particular boss. So that's a strategy I use when using different characters. You know they're going to have their strengths against certain things, and you got to know that this is a weakness they have. So you don't want to get hit by these characters because they can really take a lot of life off of you. So you just have to know what character you're fighting a certain enemy with. And it's like Steve-O said at the start of this video, you'll only find out when playing this game the first time and dying and working out, okay, this is not working, I've got to try something else. And it is a really good trial and error game. And you learn things very quickly. And it's a lot of fun when you actually do conquer a challenge because you feel you've actually achieved something. That's what I really like about this game. That sense of accomplishment when you get through it. Because you think it's really hard when you try it the first time. But when you go through it again and you get better and better, it's got such a perfect curve of difficulty, and that's what I really like about this game.
Something I wanted to add about strategy. On the, I guess on the arcade and on the home version, when you finish your game and it gives you the score, your rating, everything counts. Everything counts.
Yeah, good point.
If you how many times did you die? How many enemies did you kill? Did you continue? How much magic did you use? All of it counts.
Good point. Good point. There's a stats thing that you get at the end of the Mega Drive game as well. Of course, we get a rating out of A or A star and all that. So there's that too, and it also shows you how many you continue to have. I don't know about how many magics you use, if that's up there as a stat, but you do have something similar on the Mega Drive. Maybe not as extensive as the arcade version, but it does count because you want to better your score as well at the end. So that's what again encourages you to replay. So if you've got a B or a C rating and you beat the game, I think you can do better than that. So yeah, it's always good.
Yeah, I've always liked games that at the end they show you how you did, how you fared, so that you have a goal to attain for the next time that you play it, maybe to be better. Moving on from game strategies, let's talk about Golden Axe in today's world. Like, how do you really feel that it holds up as far as a Mega Drive game is concerned, or even comparing it to later Mega Drive games of the same genre? For me personally, Golden Axe is a timeless kind of game to me. I still love it. I do like all three installments of the game. And as far as 2D fighters, 2D brawlers go, I think it holds well with pretty much anything else that came out for the system. Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3. I'd say Golden Axe is, it's pretty much right there with the rest of them. If they had decided to do something like the Streets of Rage 4 release that we got a few years ago, or a game like a Paprium, where they had decided to remake Golden Axe in like a modern style game, I would be one of the first people to buy that thing for sure, because it was just such a great game. I would love for them to do something like that, or somebody to resurrect Golden Axe. That would be great. That's just my personal feelings. I feel like it's actually a game that, although it's an early release, and a lot of the early releases, they became a little dated as we went through the Mega Drive years, and games got better and better and better. But I really feel like Golden Axe was something I could pick up in 1995 and still be happy as happy as I was to play it in 1991. So Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
Couldn't agree more, mate. Could not agree more. I think you've said the word there, Chief. Timeless. I really think this is a timeless game. One of my big things with it is that we've talked about it in the Altered Beast episode, where you've got 20 minutes to wait for your dinner to cook, or wait for your wife to get ready, or whatever. So you've got 20 minutes to kill to put a game on. And Golden Axe is the perfect game to put on for 20 minutes and just and experience that feeling of adventure. You know what I mean? You're on the back of a turtle, you're on the back of an eagle. You're using dragon magic and all that type of stuff, and it's all condensed into a really nice 20 minutes package. Now, I love that. That to me, the way my life works, fantastic. And Golden Axe is one of my most replayed games. I replay it all the time because it fits in that bracket so well. And like you guys have said, I can try a different character, I can try a different strategy. So there's a lot there to offer. And I read a lot that the game gets flack because the AI is not that intelligent, which it isn't. But the way what Steve talked about with regards, you have to watch your back, and you also the way you can maneuver to take these baddies off using the environment, I think is fantastic. I don't think there's many beat 'em ups that do that. A lot of beat 'em ups, it's all you have to whittle them down. Yes, there are odd ones where you can throw them off, like in Streets of Rage, you can throw them off a lift or down a hole. But Golden Axe is actually really 78% about throwing him off these ledges, about maneuvering and that, and it feels so different and epic, and you always have to constantly be on the move. So I love that, and all these elements make it really timeless for me. And the icing on the cake for me is the fact that it's a credit share game, so you can play this. So I'm not going to big my own trumpet up here, but I've played Golden Axe for 30 years. I can pretty much, if I'm playing by myself, I can finish it on one life nearly. Sometimes I cock up on last boss, but and I can when I played it in arcade, I can one credit that no problem. But when I play with a wife, it's totally because she is crap, totally crap, and it robs all credit. So it adds such a great layer of another dimension of what Mirage alluded to earlier with his dad. I have to carry my wife through the game, so a lot of teamwork and there's a lot of that togetherness, that bonding through this game. And for me, it's just like I say, there's not many. I don't think there's many games. I mean, people will talk about later PlayStations, Xboxes, and all those games that like games like people talk about, like Turtles in Time and stuff like that. But none of them offer that. None of them offer that that instant. I'm always shitting myself. Well, yeah, always shitting myself when my missus is standing near a ledge, because I know any minute she could jump off it and cost us both a life. So for me, mate, this is a top draw game. A top draw game with it's just a magic game to me. A magic game, mate.
I agree. Golden Axe is one of my favorite games of all time. It'll always be. The word that we keep using is timeless. I think that's a perfect descriptive word. It is a classic. I'll never get tired of playing it. It has everything. It's a side-scrolling hack and slash with bosses and great music, and it doesn't take too long. It's a wonderful game. I think it holds up just fine. And in my opinion, if someone was experiencing Genesis games for the first time, it should be one of the first few games that they play.
Yeah. Agreed, mate.
Yeah.
Because this game, it's not too hard. They can get a taste of like what the Genesis is capable of with the sound, the graphics, and everything. And it's just a really, really enjoyable game. Everybody should try it.
Yep. I mirror your thoughts. It was so. I mean, this is, like you said, it's a game that you should. If you've not played a Genesis before on Mega Drive, it's one of the first games you should play. It was one of the first games I played, and it is the very best of Sega of that era. It's for a game made in the arcades. 1989? It's a great piece of software. It was so good that they even put it on the Mega Drive Mini itself. It made the lineup, and that's how I revisited and I replayed the game recently for the purpose of this review, and I find myself falling in love with this again. Those memories of when I was young with my father that came flooding back. And you never forget those moves playing as Gillius Thunderhead. I even learned something new. I think I spoke to you guys in private. I didn't know that, I knew there was a back attack, but I didn't know how to pull it off and what pulled it off. And I actually opened this and read the manual for the first time, because as a kid, you never read the manual. And I read it. And the back attack is pushing the B and C buttons together, thinking, this is another fact. I mean, I've been playing Golden Axe all these years, and I didn't know how to pull that off. I've been playing hardcore. You guys have had it easy knowing about that attack. So I actually used that attack and incorporated it into the game. I thought, wow, this game's totally awesome. I mean, this is so much better than when I played it for the first time. So it found a new lease of life and a new lease of appreciation. And yes, it's a multifaceted game. I mean, yes, before this, what was there? We did Altered Beast before, and that was their sort of main side-scrolling sort of fighting game. But this, you got more than one level plane. You got a bigger level plane to play around. You got enemies coming at you from the front, behind, and you have more than two enemies. You have like a number of them, and like you said, Dan, about the AI being stupid, it didn't matter. There's so many of them ganging up on you. You got to find a way. Like one's on this level plane, one's on that level plane, one's on that level plane, one's coming at you from behind. You have to divide them up to take them down, because if they gang up on you, man, you're going to get game over very quickly, man. You can't get them to keep coming at you, especially those skeletons. Those skeletons, man, they're ruthless. They will take 2 life bars off you if they corner you. They'll do it. They'll even kick you out. I hate those skeletons with a passion. Yeah. You know,
I don't think there's another game where you have to constantly be on the move as much. I think you
have to move. You have to move. You have to be moving constantly. And that's the thing with this game. You can't be stationary at all. You have to be active. And it's definitely the arcade feeling at home. And the Mega Drive, Sega pulled it off with that one on the Mega Drive. They knew what they were doing. They did an amazing job porting that to the home and making it better than the arcade version. So definitely, it's timeless, like Steve-O said. It's got so much kinetic energy. There's just so much for this game in terms of replay value. It's just, it's pretty much a perfect game, in my opinion, for the era that it came out on. And yes, it has had a legacy. We had Golden Axe 2. We had The Revenge of Death Adder in the arcades, which was the true sequel. Sadly, they couldn't port that, so they had to make a Mega Drive like dedicated sequel. Then they had Golden Axe 3, with the Japanese version. Then they had Golden Axe Warrior and Axe Battler on sort of the adventure RPG style on the 8-bit systems. And yes, there was a Golden Axe fighting game on the Saturn, which we don't have to talk about. And and there was actually a remake on the PS2, part of the Sega Classics collection. I don't know if you ever played that remake. It did get good reviews, and I think sadly with the legacy of Golden Axe, I think Beast Warrior was I haven't even played that game. I'm jumping on the bandwagon, but it wasn't received very well. But that doesn't mean that the franchise should end. They can actually do what they did with Streets of Rage 4, which was mentioned earlier. They can give it to the same people who made that and make an awesome game. They could call it Golden Axe Resurrection, whatever they want to call it, but give it that same magic, that same treatment they did with Streets of Rage 4, and continue this. Because I think, I love the original. But I want more of that flavor in today's games. And
Agreed.
I'd love to see that. I want to say that on thoughts. But it's a great game, and I just want to sort of end my final thoughts on that I really love this game. I really do.
Nice.
All right.
So let's rank it. For me, on a 1 to 10, let's go 1 to 10 scale. For me, Golden Axe, 8, solid 8 for me. There's never a time where if somebody, especially if I have somebody else that wants to play games, and 2-player mode is awesome on this game. It helps a lot. You could pick 2 separate characters that each bring their strength to the game that you don't get when you play by yourself, and you're going to use a different strategy. I would definitely say it's an 8. That's a solid 8 for me.
All right.
Go ahead, Dan.
Right. Well, I don't think a week's gone by in the past 30 years where I haven't played this game. So that well, no, I tell you, when I've been on holiday with lads on piss, that's a different story.
All right.
But when I've been at home, I don't think I have, and I constantly return to it. So to me, when people talk about all these modern games like Witcher and that being top class, this for me is up there, because I don't, I'll play some of them once through and then I won't touch them for 10 years. Whereas this I'll return to all the time. So this is a massive, for me, 9.3.
9.3. Okay. Yeah. Whoa.
Huge.
It's a great game.
I mean, that's a very specific. It's a very specific score as well, but I'm not going to delve too much into that. All right, Rick, what are you saying?
So my rating for this game, like so far, I don't think anything gets a 10. It's going to take really something special to get a 10. Um, it's got some. I mean, it's not a very hard game, so and not a very long game, but like I said so many times, it is one of my favorite games, and I'm going to have to give this one also an 8.
An 8.
An 8. Okay. All right. Okay. So we all like this game. It makes me wonder why you guys haven't getting higher ratings, because for me this game is a 10.
Look at that. Boom.
It's a 10 out of 10. And I'll tell you why. Because I have to look at it in the context of, from my point of view, when I was a boy playing this game, it was the first game I completed, and it was a hard game for me for the first time I played it, in the context of what it was. In terms of its length, I know you said it's a 20-minute game. It took me half an hour, Dan. But it's a half-hour game to beat. It's a good game to sit down and play with someone who hasn't played games before. It's a good game that I have, that I still am drawn to play again and again and again. Now, the reason I give it a 10, I mean, what more could they improve on this game to give it a higher score, I think? Well, I mean, I'd have to ask you that question. I mean, why isn't it a 10 for you guys? Because, this game is, like, so good. I mean, it's the perfect length time. I wouldn't want it any longer. Okay, it has the perfect challenge rating. I mean, the only thing that could probably be better it would have 3 simultaneous players, rather than 2. But for the time, that it was a 2-player game, and that's fair enough. But it'd be cool if they could enhance it and there's a lot of ROM hacking going on with this game as well with the community. But I just think that it has that X factor. That's what I'm saying. That's what gave it that 10. It had that X factor for me. That a game needs to have to be a 10, and that's why I'm going to give it a 10. I don't think it needs further explanation, actually, from my point of view. I love it. It's a 10. All right, it's a 10 out of 10.
Mate. Nice. That gives us a total then. That the average raw that gives us an 88% score. So,
all right,
pretty damn fine.
Oh, that's good. So that's Golden Axe for you guys. Very good. Very good.
So,
all right.
In closing, Golden Axe, awesome game. For me, it's an 8. I know. There's just so many. There's so many Mega Drive Genesis games out there that, what do we have, like 800 titles or something like that? In the original lineup between different regions. It's really hard for me to say anything is a 10. There are some 10s. I will get to those 10s at some point in my life here. But right now, Golden Axe for me, that's always been like such a solid game. Love to play it. Like I said before, strategy. And you have so many options. And for me, that the fact that it's not a long game is actually, it's great, because I love RPGs, and a lot of RPGs have similar it's a similar genre, to the same type of backdrop that you're going to have in Golden Axe. So, to be able to play a game with action and the same type of characters that you would normally see in a Dungeons and Dragons type RPG, to me, that's great, because I don't have to spend a month trying to beat it. I could do I could do it in an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it's going to take to do it. So it's just a great game. I'll pick it up anytime and always be happy with it, And I was actually just playing it on my Mini not too long ago myself. Yeah.
Sweet.
Can't beat that. Go ahead,
Excellent.
Dan. What are your closing thoughts on Golden Axe?
Yeah. I think that, like I say, the length of the game's a key thing. You've just summed it up there perfectly. It's a fantasy journey in 20 minutes. I love that Virage just give it a 10. I think the reason I've not quite give it a 10 is just because the difficulty. I think it is a game that and this is just my personal point of view, but I'm so used to beating it now. There's not really a challenge in it apart from if the wife's playing, which is then it's a hell of a challenge. But it's it's a top 20 gamer all time for me. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'd mirror those close. Well, I don't mirror exactly the closing thoughts that you have, Dan, for obvious reasons. I still find this game a challenge anyway. But yeah, it's definitely a top 20 for me as well. It is a solid game for what it is, and they did a great job doing it. I mean, I don't know what they could do better, personally. I mean, if they made it harder, I'd say it'd be too hard, personally, for someone to just pick up and play it. And I think there is a narrative now these days, and I know I hate to fall into that bracket of people who are like, "Oh, it's too hard, I don't want to play it." But I think that you want to have a game that will thrash you, but you think, "Okay, what did I do wrong? I can go back and do better." And I think that's what Golden Axe lets you do.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if it was any harder, it would be like, "Nah, forget this." So that's my closing thoughts on it. I think that it's got a good difficulty curve as it is, and that's why.
Well, I think the difficulty curve is brilliant in it. I think it's fantastic. It'd have been interesting if I think if there had added an extra difficulty level or two, then I'd probably give it a 10, to be honest. Okay. But that said, you've already said, you can kind of do that anyway, manipulating your energy bars and your credit limit. So that's why I'm almost at a 10 myself, mate.
All right.
I agree with you guys. I can't think of really anything that I would do differently than what Sega did with Golden Axe. Probably if there was anything that I would change or improve, and this is mostly a hardware limitation, but I think that I would like to have the different multi-layer scrolling backgrounds like what the arcade had.
Yeah.
But it was already probably pretty taxing for the Genesis at the time, so those kind of graphics were for more of the later generation games. But that's probably the only thing I would do different, and I mirror everybody else's thoughts about the game. There's really not too much different that I can say.
Yeah.
That we haven't already said.
Sweet.
All right. So, I guess that's going to wrap it up today on SEGA Mega Masters with Golden Axe. And thanks everybody for being here. And we'll see you at the next discussion. Take care.
All right.
That's it.
SEGA.